Welcome to week 12, the summer of 2024. We're in Bible Studies for Life, coming near the end of the summer. I don't know about where you are, but let me tell you where I am. It's hot. It's really hot. But we're glad to be coming near the end of this, looking at some different characters, and kind of the main character of who we're looking at this week is Haman, who's the bad guy. It's not normal. We don't always look at the bad guys. Usually we're thinking about the good guys. Haman's the bad guy. Okay, before we look at the passage, be sure that you subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, the like button. If you've got a comment or a question, put it in there. Tell us where you're watching from. And then, of course, we'd love it if you'd share the video with somebody else as you go. Okay, thank you for teaching. Appreciate all of you teachers out there that are watching this week. Hope this is helpful. The first word, I'm going to say this, right? Read the book. You're going to have to read really the whole thing of Esther, but the first 6 chapters at least, so you're caught up with the story, because we kind of pick up in the middle of the story and then leave out the part that often is the passage that we look at in Esther. We're not even going to have that one in the lesson, so you'll have to mention that, I'm sure, but it's good to give a good summary of the book as we go into Esther here. Basically, the king has, his wife has not wanted to do as he thought she ought to, as he wanted her to, as he told her to. So he's gotten rid of her, had basically a tryout for a new queen. They brought a bunch of young women to him, and the one who was picked was a young Jewish girl named Esther, whose uncle Mordecai has raised her. And so Esther and Mordecai are kind of the 2 central figures of the book, but Haman he's the antagonist here. He's the guy that's causing the trouble within this story. So we have this Mordecai and Esther, who are the heroes. Mordecai has even found out about a plot to kill the king, and has told Esther, who then warned the king, and so saved the king's life. And that's where we pick up the story in chapter 3 of Esther. So let's look. After all this took place, that's chapters 1 and 2. Okay, so it'd be real helpful to read chapters 1 and 2. King Ahasuerus honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite. He promoted him in rank and gave him a higher position than all the other officials. The entire royal staff at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, because the king had commanded this to be done for him. But Mordecai would not bow down or pay homage. Okay, so after all this has taken place, this guy, Haman, he's the one who gets this big promotion. The king puts him, he says, in a higher position than all the other officials. So he is second to the king, right? High position. And he even said, the king said, that everybody's got to bow down and pay homage to Haman whenever he comes by. That's what the king had declared. But there's this guy, Mordecai. Mordecai would not bow down or pay homage. Okay, so we know Mordecai because if we've read the first 2 chapters, we know that he is the uncle to the queen now, Esther, that he is the guy who saved the king's life, even though the king's not really aware of Mordecai's role in this. So Mordecai has a standing, right? And Mordecai is a faithful Jew. Now, the Jews are throughout the kingdom, okay? We're talking about the Jewish people who are in captivity. They're spread throughout this kingdom. They don't have place, but they're not under persecution yet. Okay, so now right here we get this conflict between Mordecai and Haman. The members of the royal staff at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why are you disobeying the king's command?" And when they had warned him day after day and he still would not listen to them, they told Haman in order to see if Mordecai's actions would be tolerated, since he had told them he was a Jew. Okay, so they come and they say, why are you doing this? They don't even tell what the answer is, but they basically watched him day after day, and they noticed that he still wouldn't bow down, right? He wouldn't listen. So they told Haman to see if Mordecai's actions would be tolerated. Okay, it helps to know in the first chapter, right, the king sends for his wife, Queen Vashti. Vashti refuses to come. He's like, you better come, and she's not going to come. And, well, that ends up costing her queenship. Read the first 2 chapters, okay? So this is kind of a little bit of a theme here in the book, right? What happens if you disobey the ruler, the guy over you? What happens to you? And so they're wanting to see, well, what's going to happen to Mordecai? And they tell them he's a Jew, because he had told them he was a Jew. So they let Haman know, hey, this guy Mordecai, he didn't bow down to you. By the way, he's a Jew. Okay. When Haman saw that Mordecai was not bowing down or paying him homage, he was filled with rage, because Haman likes this bowing down, and he likes this people bowing and paying him homage, right? So when he learned of Mordecai's ethnic identity, he learned he's a Jew. It seemed repugnant to Haman to do away with Mordecai alone. He planned to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout Ahasuerus' kingdom. Now, this tells you a little bit about Haman, right? It's not just that Haman is filled with rage because Mordecai won't bow, but he's like, you know what? I'm not just going to punish Mordecai. I'm going to punish everybody that has any relationship to Mordecai. He's a Jew, all the Jews. We're going to kill them all. We're going to punish every single one of them. We're going to destroy them. Okay, this is not rational behavior, right? This is not what we would call normal or maybe civilized behavior. This is the behavior of a person who is in rebellion against God in his heart, and he's filled with rage, and he's filled with arrogance that he deserves for people to bow down to him, and that if they don't, then not only should that individual be punished, but people that live 10 miles away who don't have anything to do with this, they should be punished too. And people that live 30 miles the other way, they should be punished too. All of these people should be destroyed because of what this one guy did. So in the first month, the month of Nisan, in King Ahasuerus' 12th year, the pur, that is the lot, okay, this is kind of important as you go on if you were to finish reading the book, was cast before Haman for each day and each month, and it fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. Then Haman informed King Ahasuerus, there's one ethnic group, they're scattered throughout the peoples, in every province of your kingdom, keeping themselves separate. Their laws are different from everyone else's. They do not obey the king's laws. It's not in the king's best interest to tolerate them, so he's making a case that this is not in your interest. He wasn't worried about them before, but when Mordecai wouldn't bow, suddenly he's worried, right? If the king approves, let an order be drawn up authorizing their destruction, and I will pay 375 tons of silver to the officials for deposit in the royal treasury. It says we're going to authorize their destruction, and I'm going to pay money. Make it happen. He makes his case before the king. Well, the king goes for it. Guess we ought to stick here, right? The king goes for it. He likes it. He makes the law. They're going to kill them all. Okay, look, we're in chapter 6. That's where we go next, right? You got to read chapters 4 and 5. Because in chapter 4 and 5, basically, Mordecai goes, he goes into mourning, wearing sackcloth and ashes because he's seen the law that's been passed. And he goes to Queen Esther, and she's like, you need to put on some clothes. You can't come in here looking like that. But anyway, he goes to her basically and says, hey, you need to know that they're not just going to kill everybody else. They're going to kill you too. And they find out that you're a Jew. And you need to know that maybe God has put you, and here's where that verse comes in, for such a time as this. You've got to go talk to the king, your husband, you're the queen. You've got to go talk to him about this. And maybe this is why God put you here. Maybe this is it. You're here for such a time as this. So she sets up this whole dinner thing. She's going to have a dinner. That's a whole other deal, right? But in the meantime, the king, waiting to go to this dinner on the next day, he goes to sleep, can't sleep. He asks them to read the books of the history. Read the history books to me of things that have happened. And he reads about Mordecai alerting that there are these two people that want to kill the king and warning them and saving the king's life. And he asked his assistants, what have we done for this guy? This guy saved my life. What's happened? And they said, basically nothing. And he says, well, I tell you what, we're going to honor him tomorrow. So the king told Haman, hurry and do just as you proposed, right? Take a garment and a horse, because look, he sets Haman up. We should say this, okay? He says, Haman, what should we do for a person who has done well for the king? And he says, well, I think that person ought to have a royal robe and be paraded right through the city, because Haman thinks it's going to be him. Right? The king says, you got it, Haman. Hurry and do just as you propose. You take a garment and a horse for Mordecai, the Jew, who is sitting at the king's gate. Do not leave out anything you have suggested. Do it just like you suggested. And so now Haman takes the garment and the horse. He clothed Mordecai, paraded him through the city square, calling out before him, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor." Can you imagine this? Haman has to clothe Mordecai and parade him through the city. Lord just switches it around. This guy he wants to kill, this guy that he hates, that he has decided he's going to kill every single person who's related to Mordecai. And now he has been marching in front of him. And, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman hurried off for home, mournful and with his head covered. Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai is Jewish and you've begun to fall before him, you won't overcome him because your downfall is certain." While they were still speaking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and rushed Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. Okay, you just got to read the whole story. But here Haman thought he was going to be victorious, but God turned these things on him. And now Haman not only has to march Mordecai through, but his family's now telling him, his wife saying, you're gonna lose this. You're not gonna win this. Look how it's all turned on you. You don't have a chance. You're going to be destroyed in this deal. And certainly then he goes right to the banquet Esther has prepared. And there Esther outs Haman as the guy who proposes to kill all the Jews. And the gallows that Haman has built for Mordecai, he hangs on. The spoiler alert. Right? But Haman hangs on him. Okay. It's a powerful story, the story of Esther. It's interesting to come at it from this side, thinking about Haman and what it is to be in rebellion against God. And ultimately, there is a punishment for that rebellion. Now, many times we don't see that on this side. And thankfully, as believers, we know that Jesus took that punishment for us on our behalf. If we accept his offer of forgiveness, if we accept his death in our place and give our lives to him, then we are spared from that punishment that Jesus took on our behalf. We are spared and we get to spend eternity with him. Okay, thanks for watching. God bless you for that. Thank you for teaching. Be sure and subscribe, like, comment, share with somebody else. We'll see you next week. It's the last week.